what you're saying. So there's no black and white when it comes to sexual orientation from a scientific perspective.
People talk about, there's no atheist in the foxhole. Well, there's also no atheist in the KKK.
Right.
And there's no atheist in Al-Qaeda. And the genital mutilation community is entirely, faith-based. And, these are conversations that we could be having if we didn't have to get through, well, this is their culture, we can't call into question. Yes, we freaking can. Yes, we can.
Asking questions, the hard questions.
Yes.
That challenges the very foundation of what we believe. And that brings us to the standpoint that we have in our culture about what's normal and what's natural about sexual orientation and sexual identification. There's a whole list. I'm going to call it pseudoscience because I don't know all the legit terms about it, around how unnatural and unhealthy. Because I know I got the unbiblical side. Because my people, I got that part. But they're saying even scientifically, it is. You can see that it's a mental illness. Scientifically, you can see that in nature, it's designed for a man, like a male species of a particular, whatever you want to call it, and a female to come together. Anything else is unnatural. Help me understand how true those claims are.
They're super not. And the thing is that, number one, our concept of gender is bizarrely heteronormative and super rooted in Western puritanical, religion. We look at things through this lens of, well, there's boys and girls.
So that belief system strictly comes from that. That's fascinating.
Well, it comes from Western culture. It comes from white Europeans, and they say, well, there's boys and girls, and boys like girls.
There's a lot of other things that came from that.
A lot of things, a lot of bad things, a lot of good things too.
Phenomenal.
But again, these are things that need to be questioned, and if we can't look at the history of these things, and we can't look at the legitimacy of these things, and we just say, well, it's true because I learned it in school, we're never going to get anywhere. I mean, how many planets are there? Because you talk to most people, they're going to say, well, there's 9. In our solar system, I should say. How many planets are there? Well, there's 9 planets. I learned it in elementary school. Yeah, I learned that too, but it's not true. We changed it because definitions change when we get new data. And if we can't do that with biology, we're never going to get anywhere because biology is the most rapidly changing science there is. The coolest thing about life, the reason why I love it the most, is that every single biological definition, over all of them, has except and unless and well until and well, if you factor in this thing, there's all these couching caveats. And so when you are learning the basics of biology, it's essential that we learn to categorize things. But when you really start to understand biology, it's essential that you learn how to stop categorizing things because everything's a fuzzy gradient. And when it comes down to
there's no black and white with this thing.
Absolutely not.
So there's no black and white when it comes to sexual orientation from a scientific.
No, the data is very clear. Let me be succinct first, and then we'll get into details. The data is very clear that sex, gender, sexual orientation, pronoun usage, if you want to get into humans, gender identity, all of these things, not one of them is a binary. They are all spectra, and there are places, and they're all completely different things as well. Sex and gender are completely different. Right. Sexual orientation is completely different. Right. And so when you look at these things, there are places where you can put goalposts, and you can say, well, yeah, there's mostly male and mostly female, but there's also people that are not going to fall in that land, in that realm, and that who are you to tell them what they are? Right. For example, when we talk about chromosomes, that's oftentimes what people jump to.
That's the big thing that they use. If you take your DNA, if you take your blood, and take your DNA, it'll be like you can change everything else, but if you take your DNA, you'll be able to find that you will, if you were born a woman, you were made a woman. Check your equipment. That's what they say.
Yes. And so you hear that all the time is, chromosomes don't lie, and all these things. Well, yeah, first of all, there is XX and there is XY, but there's also XXY. That's Klinefelter syndrome. There's also Turner syndrome, X and nothing else. You can have 3 X's, there's and a Y as well. But there's all these different variations there. And the argument from the other side is, these are abnormalities, these are defects. Right. Even if I were to grant that to you and say that none of these people are normal or whatever like this, sure, whatever. They're still people though. Right. So who are you to go up to them and say, well, yes, if you're XY, then you're a boy. Except for you who aren't, you're also a boy because I said so. What is that?
So we just tell them, we
put them in these boxes, and that's the real argument.
To exist.
Exactly, and that's the real argument, is does it make more sense to say that people know who they are and should be allowed to determine who they are, Or does it make more sense to say that almost 8 billion people fit into 2 boxes? You're either this or this, and that's all. And when we look at, you talked about the word unnatural a few times. When we looked out in the animal kingdom.
It's against nature. It's against nature.
Yeah. No, it's not at all. When we look out in the animal kingdom, we've seen homosexual behavior in over 1,500 animal species. We see non-reproductive.
It's over 1,500.
It's over 1,500, dude.
Well, I didn't know that either.
We see non-reproductive sex.
That's why I have him here. It's because you got to be having someone that knows what they're talking about.
We see non-reproductive sex in dozens and dozens of animal species, just having sex for fun. We see transsexuals in lots and lots of animal species. There are some species where their natural state is to change their sex. We look at, for example, shrimp are a great example. They all are born male and become female as they turn out throughout their life. That's what we call serial protandry. How cool is that? And
shrimp do that?
Shrimp do that! And then there's
right? So just be sure you.
And there's lots of other species that will change their sex if there isn't the other sex around and they need to continue on their little colony. There are other species that will pretend to be the other sex for social situations. And there's lots of variation here. The one thing that humans have going on for us is that we're the only animal that can express in detail what it feels like to be a thing. And we should be taking advantage of that. Rather than trying to cram people into boxes and tell them, no, you're this because I said so, we should be focusing on science and listening to the people that we want to know so much about.